My name is Anna. I am 34 years old, and this is my story. It is not an easy story to tell. It carries sadness, mistakes, and loneliness, but also hope. Many people see me from the outside and think my life is fine. They see a woman who works, who smiles, who looks normal. But inside, I carry a heavy heart. I have been married twice. I wanted love, I wanted family, but what I found was silence and emptiness. Yet, even in that emptiness, I learned something. I learned about myself, and I learned that sometimes the hardest truth can still lead us to peace. I met my first husband when I was 25. His name was David. He was funny, he was smart, and he had a way of making me feel seen. We met one ordinary morning at a bus stop. I was standing there, waiting for the bus that was late, and he turned to me and said, "Looks like this bus has gone on holiday." I laughed. I didn't even know him, but something about his smile felt warm. The next day, he found my number through a friend and called me. We met again, walked through a park, and drank coffee. He told me stories about his job, about books he liked, and I listened. He asked me about my dreams. I told him I wanted a home filled with love, laughter, and children. He nodded and held my hand. 8 months later, he asked me to marry him. I was young and I believed in love, so I said yes. The first months of our marriage were sweet. He brought me small gifts from the market, like apples or flowers. We cooked together, watched movies, and sometimes danced in the kitchen just for fun. I thought, yes, this is love. This is how it should be. But slowly, things began to change. David grew distant. He stopped talking to me about his day. He came home late and often stayed quiet at dinner. When I asked, "Are you okay?" he would only answer, "I'm fine." But I could see he was not fine. I tried harder. I cooked his favorite meals. I asked him to take walks with me. Sometimes he came, but he looked distracted. Other times he said, "I'm busy." One night, I asked him softly, "Do you still love me?" He looked at me with tired eyes and said, "Don't ask silly questions." Then he left the room. I sat at the table, staring at the cold food. I felt like my heart was also cold. For months, I lived like this, hoping he would change, waiting for him to return to the man who had laughed with me at the bus stop. But he never came back. The silence grew heavier, and I felt like a stranger in my own home. Finally, one evening, I said, "I cannot live like this. I feel alone every day." He turned his face away. He did not argue. He did not beg. He only said nothing. I whispered, "I want a divorce." He answered, "Do what you want." That was the end of our 3 years of marriage. No fight, no tears from him, just emptiness. I moved into a small apartment. It had one bedroom and a kitchen with old tiles, but it was mine. The first night, I sat on the floor with no furniture around me. The air was still, and I felt both sadness and freedom. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I told myself, next time I will choose better. Next time I will wait for real love. For a year, I stayed single. I went for walks, I listened to music, and I tried to understand myself. But life has a way of surprising us. One afternoon, I met another man. His name was Michael. Michael was gentle. He had kind eyes and a soft smile. I first noticed him at a dinner with friends. He pulled out a chair for an older woman and spoke politely to everyone. When he sat next to me, he asked about my work, my family, my hobbies. He listened carefully when I answered, and I felt safe. Soon after, he called me, and we met at a small cafe. He told me he liked old movies and hiking. I smiled and thought, he's different. He's caring. Maybe this is the right man. For a year, we dated. He made me laugh, and he showed patience. When he proposed, I said yes. I wore a simple pale dress. He wore a gray suit, and we said, I do, in front of a few close friends. I thought, this is my new beginning. But soon I saw the same pattern again. The distance, the silence, the long hours at work. Michael came home late, ate quickly, and went to bed without asking me about my day. When I tried to speak, he answered with short words, just tired. When I told him, I feel lonely, he said, you think too much. Those words cut me deeply because I had heard them before. I realized I was living the same story again. Two different men, but the same coldness. I had hoped for warmth, but I received silence. I tried to fight the loneliness, but it was stronger than me. Nights passed with me staring at the ceiling, asking, why again? Why me? One Sunday, Michael asked, do you want to have a baby? I think it would bring us closer. I froze. The thought of raising a child in this cold silence scared me. I whispered, I'm not ready. He looked hurt, but he did not argue. He only nodded. That night, I wrote in my journal, I'm drowning in this marriage. Michael is kind, but he's not close to me. I cannot breathe here. For weeks, I thought about leaving. I even packed a small bag once, but when I looked at him sleeping peacefully, I put it back. I was afraid of hurting him. I was afraid of what people would say. They would call me selfish. They would say I did not try hard enough. But the weight inside me grew heavier. I started writing letters to myself. In one I wrote, Anna, you are not bad. You wanted love, you tried, but it is not here. You must be brave. In another I wrote, Michael is not your enemy. He is good, but he's not your home. These words helped me see more clearly. One evening, I told Michael the truth. My hands shook, but I said, I care for you, but I do not love you. I married you because I wanted to heal from my first pain, but love never came. He was silent for a long time. Then he said softly, I knew. I just didn't want to believe it. Tears ran down my cheeks. I am so sorry, I whispered. He looked at me and said, I love you, Anna, but I cannot be the only one trying. If your heart is not here, I cannot hold you. We sat in silence that night. No shouting, no anger, only sadness. For the first time in years, I felt lighter, even in pain, because the truth was finally spoken. A week later, I packed my things. Michael helped me carry my bag to the door. He said, if you need anything, call me. I nodded and said, thank you for everything. You were always good to me. He gave a small smile and said, take care, Anna. I left and stayed with my friend Clara for a while. She had a small guest room where I could sleep. I cried there often, but Clara never judged me. She cooked with me, walked with me by the lake, and listened when I wanted to talk. Slowly, I started to heal. One day, while walking, I saw a flyer for a writing class. Something inside me said, try. So I joined. In that small room, with strangers writing stories, I began to write my own truth. I wrote about my marriages, my loneliness, my hope. The words on the page felt like air in my lungs. Months passed. I found a small studio apartment. It was not big, but it was mine. I painted the walls a soft yellow and placed flowers by the window. I made coffee each morning and sat watching the street. Sometimes I felt lonely, but I also felt free. One afternoon, I found the necklace Michael had given me. I held it, then placed it in a box with a note. Thank you for your kindness. I will not forget. Clara returned it to him for me. That was my quiet goodbye. As seasons changed, I changed too. I made friends in the writing class. I smiled more. I laughed. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had been broken, but who was slowly healing. I whispered to myself, this is not a perfect story, but it is mine. I am still learning, still growing. I do not know what the future holds, but I know I will never silence my heart again. If anyone who reads this feels the same, I want to say, you are not alone. Mistakes do not make you bad. Starting again does not make you weak. Be honest. Be brave. Listen to your heart. Thank you for hearing my story. It does not have a happy ending yet, but it has truth. And sometimes truth is the first step toward peace.